What's up, guys? And today we are going to be going over factorizing quadratic expressions. So in our last video, I left you with this quadratic expression, x squared plus 8x plus 12. And now we need to factorize that. So how do we factorize this? Well, the first thing is that factorizing initially means that what we need to do is we need to put this expression in brackets. So in the last lesson, we learned how to expand the brackets. We learned how to do that. This is now just the opposite. Factorizing is the opposite of that. Effectively, it's like now we have the expression and we need to put it into the bracket. So how do we do that? Well, with quadratic expressions, there are three ways we can do it. And in this video, we'll go over the first way. So if we have an expression like this, x squared plus 8x plus 12, then what you need to do is this number right here, this 8, and we have this 12, okay? Now what you need to do is you need to think of two numbers which can sum to make 8, and you multiply them numbers together to make 12, okay? So effectively you can think of it as you want to plus and times, okay? So if you just think about that, you can just go through it in your head. If you do that, then there are two numbers which can sum to make 8 and which can multiply to make 12. That is 6 and 2. So in our brackets, we would have x here and we would have x here, okay? And we'd have plus 6 and plus 2. Okay, let me just make this smaller, like this, okay? So we'd have x plus 6 and we would have x plus 2, okay? And if you want to verify this, you can always verify this by expanding the brackets out. So if we were to expand the brackets out, well, we would have x times x, which would give us the x squared. We would have x times 2, which would give us a positive 2x. We would have 6 times x, which would give us the positive 6x. And then again, if we do 6 times 2, we would have a positive 12. And if you add that all up together, if you simplify it down, you'd have x squared. Can't do anything with that. We would also have a 8x. It'll be 2x plus the 6x. And then just plus 12, okay? So for that middle value, your x value, you always want to find two numbers which can add to make that number, and then times to make your last number, okay? Okay, so I've got another question now. I've got x squared plus 10x plus 21, and it's the same thing. So all you do is think about two numbers which can add to make 10 and can multiply to make 21. So if you go through all the factors of 21, then it should be fairly easy. You'll be left with 7 and 3, because 7 plus 3 equals 10, and 7 times 3 equals 21. So therefore, our brackets would simply just be x plus 7, x plus 3, okay? And that is it for these ones. So now we have this question, okay? We have x squared minus 4x plus 3. So it's a little different, but it will follow the exact same pattern. So because we have a minus 4, then that is a number we need to sum to, okay? We need to sum to minus 4. So what two numbers can sum to give us minus 4, but then can times together to give us a positive 3? That's what we've got to think of. And that would be minus 3 and minus 1. So for example, the reason for that is if we had minus 3 plus minus 1, I'll do the minus 1 in brackets, that will give us a minus 4 still, because the plus just cancels out. It becomes minus 3 minus 1, gives us a minus 4. And then minus 3 times by minus 1, that will give us a positive 3. Remember that when you times two negatives together, they give you a positive, okay? So now we've got our two values. We've got minus 3 and minus 1, and then we just put that into the brackets. So it'll be x minus 3, x minus 1. And again, that would be your answer. Again, if you're unsure about that, you just want to verify, then you can always expand the brackets. If you expand the brackets, you would get x squared. X times a negative 1 is minus x. Minus 3 times x is minus 3x. And minus 3 times minus 1 is a positive 3. And if you simplify that down, you will get x squared minus 4x plus 3. So I've got another question here. I've got x squared plus 7x minus 60. So because we've got a minus 60 now, the only way you can get a minus 60 is if you're timesing one number by a negative number. So that tells us that one of our values should be a negative value. Okay, so what should we do? Well, we do the exact same thing. We've just got to figure out two numbers which can sum to make a 7 and times to make minus 60. So the easiest way to do this is go through the factors of just 60 in your head. Just go through all the factors of 60. So you've got 1 and 60, 2, 30, 4 and 15, 6, 10, but you've also got 5 and 12. And this is the key. Now, 5 and 12, if you look at it, if you add them up, you get 17. However, remember that one of our numbers needs to be a negative because that's the only way you can get a negative 60. So I think the best way to do this is just go through all the factors and see which ones, if you were to add them together, maybe subtract one from the other, just see which ones can give you 7. So in this case, it would be 12 and 5, but it wouldn't just be 12 and 5. No, it would be 12 and minus 5. Now, remember that it's minus 5, okay? It's a minus 5. Now, the reason for that is because 12 minus 5 will give us a 7, okay? Be careful. It is very important which way you get this, because if you were to do minus 12, I'll use another color. If we were to do minus 12 plus 5, then that would give us minus 7, and that would not be correct because we have a positive 7. So it is very imperative that you know which number you put the minus on. Okay? So it's 12 and minus 5 because 12 and minus 5, 12 plus a negative 5, that will give us a positive 7. And 12 times minus 5 will also give us a minus 60, okay? So therefore, we've worked it out, and now we can put that in. So it would be x plus 12, x minus 5, okay? Okay, so the last question we'll do for today is going to be x squared minus 7x minus 18. So again, just want to go through the factors of 18 in your head and which one of them can sum to make a minus 7 and can times to make a minus 18. So if you go through that, then you will conclude that, okay, 9 and 2 seems like the most feasible option here. Now, 9 and 2, they can make a minus 7. And again, it's very important that you remember which one you apply the negative sign to. So if we have 9 and 2, then it would be a minus 9 and a positive 2, okay? Because a minus 9 plus a positive 2, that will give us minus 7. And then a minus 9 times by a positive 2 will give us our minus 18, okay? So then we've worked that out. We know that it's going to be a minus 9 and a positive 2. And then if we put that in brackets, we'll get x minus 9 and x plus 2, okay? Okay, so now I made it to the end of the video. I'll leave you just with one more question, which you guys can always try if you want. But this is what we'll be doing in our next lesson. So if I leave you with this, we have x squared plus 2x minus 5. You can try and have a go and try and see what that will be. and this is what we'll be going over in our next lesson. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you on the next video.